so how could I take what we know about the industry and teach our customers and people to do checks? So I joined that industry and just learn a lot about, and I think even when you say every country is a different journey, I think we've got a lot to learn from the journey that the US has gone through in growing this industry.
Welcome to Behind the Screens, conversations with background screening pros. I'm Les Rosen, your host, and I'm excited to have you here. On this podcast, we chat with the people who know the background screening world inside and out. Executives, industry experts, legal pros, and more. We dive into their personal stories and insights to give you a real look at what's happening behind the scenes. Whether you work in the screening industry or are just curious, Behind the Screens bring you the real, unfiltered conversations from the people who make it all happen. Stick around for stories you won't hear anywhere else. Ladies and gentlemen, Les Rosen here. Welcome to another jam-packed, exciting episode of Behind the Screens, conversations with background screening pros. And today, I am delighted to have with us a person who probably has the most frequent flyer miles associated with anyone who does anything for PBSA. She is coming today all the way from Australia. If she was in the U.S., we would call her Summer, but in Australia, where you apparently add an A to everything, we actually call her Selma McCosker. And a veteran, I'll let her reveal how much of a veteran she is. It's a pleasure to walk into the program all the way from APAC, our good friend and a distinguished member of the background screening industry, no other than Summa McCosker. Summa, welcome to the program.
Thank you, lads. Oh my gosh, I'm blushing. You're making me feel embarrassed.
Right.
But thank you. Such a beautiful introduction.
Oh, well, thank you. No problem. Thank you for everything that you've done for PBSA and for APAC, and your involvement in the industry is just legendary. And I'm just so impressed that when you had I think a term or two as a board member, and you would come to any number of PBSA events in the U.S. all the way from Australia. I mean, how long did that take? What was the hours involved?
Oh, I think my longest trip, was about 32 hours, but it would be at least a day. You would have to allow a day. And I think on the way back, you'd have to allow 2 days because you lose a day. So when you're coming sort of back, you lose a day. So whatever day that was, I would lose a Thursday or a Saturday or a Friday or something like that coming back.
But you gained that day coming forward because you had the U.S. earlier the same day than you left Australia. So it's beyond my feeble mind. I can't figure it out. But we were on those flights. Some people can't wait to get off. But I don't think that's you, though. You were telling me that you actually enjoyed the time in the air.
Oh, gosh, I loved it because life and work and everything is always so, so busy. And I would love that time, especially in the early days. There was no Wi-Fi on flight. So it's like, well, sorry, can't check emails for, at least one of the biggest leg was about sort of 14 hours, depending on where you flew into. I was like, sorry, can't check emails. And that would be the only time that I would get to watch movies because I just didn't get time, at home to watch a movie. So I would sit back and have a glass of champagne or something and watch a couple of movies. And I have to say, I really loved it.
So life is good. No one to bother you. Bubbly, champagne, movies. Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And even if I was doing a bit of work, that would be fine too, because you could kind of get in there, focus, do what you needed to do. And there wasn't like lots of interruptions and those sorts of things. So I actually just really value that time. It's been great.
So where are you right now for our listening public? You are actually in Australia. You're down under.
Yeah, I am down under. And yeah, I'm in Newcastle in New South Wales, which is about 2 hours north of Sydney. So nice and close to Sydney, but further enough away from the hustle and bustle. It is a city. They do call Newcastle area a city, but it's like a big country town. It's a lovely, lovely, easy place to live. It's beautiful.
Are you close to the ocean?
We are close to the ocean, and I live in a place in Newcastle called Lake Macquarie, so we're on the lake, and that is absolutely stunning, and the beaches are on the other side, and there's trees, and it's just a beautiful place to live. Yeah.
Well, I think we should hold the next PBSA meeting in Newcastle at your house.
I know. Well, you know what we've talked about? We've talked about this for APAC, jokingly, and I would welcome everyone with open arms. So bring your
And at the
sleeping
risk of
bag.
becoming a cliche, you have to have shrimp in the Barbie and et cetera, et
Yeah.
cetera. Right.
And we've got 2 barbecues, so we'd be well catered.
Well, that'd be fantastic. So when you're not luxuriating on these long air rides or having shrimps in the Barbie and doing everything you described, what is it you do in your basically your work life? I would say 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, but I suspect that your hours are a lot longer than that. But what are you currently doing?
Yeah, so I'm currently the regional director for APAC for certain, and I look after the operational and commercial success in APAC. And I do all aspects of sort of growth in the region. So I everything from end-to-end delivery of products, helping the engineers and the product teams develop products, services, look after the customer success team, operations, work closely with market team, and work with all of our support teams as well. And ultimately responsible for that sort of strategic planning and the sustainable growth of the region.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's Monday 9 to 10. What do you do with the rest of your time? So I see. So you have 3 or 4 jobs. Okay, that's all right. And Certain is headquartered in Vancouver, right? British Columbia?
In Victoria, in
Oh,
Canada.
Victoria, rather. Okay. Okay. Love Victoria, but that's great. And so you've been in the screen industry for a while. And what was your path to get from starting to where you are with Certain?
Oh, it's been a journey, I have to say. So I'm really, really proud to say I've been in the industry now for 27 years,
Wow, that's
and
tremendous.
yeah, and
Congratulations.
I often joke because I think, oh, no one will know because I look so sprightly and
All
young. That
right.
is not the case. I have bags under my eyes and all of
All
that.
right.
I don't know. I find it interesting how I sort of started. I actually, my very, very first job when I was a teenager led to my career in this industry. So when I was 15, I started working. I got my very first job in a ladies' clothing store, a chain here in Australia called Suzanne Grey. And I grew up in a small fishing village, I guess you could call it, in Australia, called broader area is called Foster Curry. And I got my first job, I was 15, and so I was a sales assistant. And I worked for a lady. I then sort of went through school and went to university. And I stayed working for Suzanne Grey. I worked with them for 7 years. And after I finished university, I studied criminology and sociology at university. And then when I was sort of left university, I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do. A lot of my friends were sort of going into the police and doing all these different things, social work and all these things, and I wasn't really sure. So I stayed in retail and worked in a shoe store, but I was always still in contact with that very first boss. So she stayed in contact. My mum and dad still lived in the town, and they saw her and she had sort of connected, and she said, "Hey, my son is looking for a research assistant and he is in this company." And so I applied for the job, and that person was also somebody that's been in the industry for a while, Guy Underwood. And I went and worked for Guy, and he had just sort of started with some other colleagues this small company called Network International, and it was made up of Guy. He was ex-police at the time, and there was a forensic accountant, Malcolm Shackle, and some other ex-police. And so I joined them as a research assistant, and my responsibilities were sort of administration, investigative support, and also this thing called background screening.
That you had never heard of before.
Never really heard of background screening. And then here I was, and it was like I think I got all of 2 weeks training. And at that time, this small company called Network International had a parent company in the UK, and we were doing all of their Asia Pacific work. So it was really just me. And so that's kind of how I started in the industry. And then that business was, I guess we were kind of acquired. It wasn't really an acquisition. I was so young at the time, I didn't really know about all those sorts of things. But next thing, I was working at PricewaterhouseCoopers. This team had set up the forensic division at PricewaterhouseCoopers. And so then I was there. And I stayed with PwC for 6 years. Absolutely loved my time there. It was such a great learning opportunities there. And we all often hear of, no one really picks background screening. We all kind of fall into it, and I kind of did as well. But I did have this point, and I was said, Summer, you've got to make a choice. You either pick background screening or you pick the investigative research side. And I saw this huge opportunity with background screening. Like we're talking, it was the early 2000s at that time. And I saw that this was an industry that was going to grow. And I picked background screening.
Oh,
So
very good.
I grew a small team there. And then things started to happen in the market that time. So September 11 happened. There was some changes with Sarbanes-Oxley that really impacted those big accounting firms, and we could no longer service our biggest client. So I lost my client. So then an opportunity came up to go and back and work with Guy Underwood. At this time, he'd sort of left. He'd left and set up his own company. So I went and worked with Guy, and he actually started Risk Group, and Risk Group was then later acquired by Sterling, and I helped him set up his background screening there. Left him. Gosh, it feels like it's a long time, isn't it? 27 years. Left Guy, and I was actually moving from Sydney. I was living in Sydney at that time, and I was moving from Sydney to Newcastle. My husband and I decided that we would leave Sydney. And I thought, oh, well, we'll move Sydney. I'll leave the industry, and met these two recruitment ladies. And they said to me, have you ever thought about starting your own business in background screening? And I was like, well, yeah, I'd kind of already sort of done it 2 times before at PwC and at Risk Group. And I said, sure, why not? I'm young enough. Let's go for it. So we started PeopleCheck.
Good for you. You went for it. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we started PeopleCheck in 2006. And oh gosh, that was so many ups and downs. That was just such an exciting journey. And then sold PeopleCheck in 2019 to HireRight.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. I mean, that's quite the adventure. I mean, that's quite the ups and downs and the ins and outs. But every day you wake up and it's like, what's going to happen today?
It really was. And I think it was such every little piece of sort of that journey, brings you new things and new experiences. And it was fun and scary growing my business. And I do have a funny story that I would love to share when I sort of started PeopleCheck. And it's hard for those that have started their own business. It's hard. I remember sitting there on my first day, and I sat down and I was like, right, I had a computer and phone. I was like, great, what do I do now? And I remember
just need a client.
Right. Yeah, I made a letterhead, and I was like, okay, I'm going to make a letterhead. So I went and made my letterhead, and it was hard. It was sort of hard getting clients, and I think it was 2006. Background screening was really evolving. It wasn't really a thing in Australia, in APAC in general, and so education was such a big piece. And I remember I was sitting there one day, and it was tough. You're on the phone trying to get business, and I was listening to the radio, and there was this clairvoyant on the radio. So I rang up and I said, look, do you think there'll be success in my business? And she said, no, I'm not too sure. All I see is a lot of hard work. And I was like, well, I'm going to show you. And I hung up that phone and I said, I'm going to show you, and I'm going to make this business a real success. So, and we absolutely did. And I think and then selling the business to HireRight was a very exciting time.
Well, congratulations. So you beat the clairvoyant. So the spirits were with you, not the clairvoyant. All right. That's a great story. And work and perseverance, and, just not knowing what the next day will bring, and looking over the abyss, and no safety net, and living by your wits, and you just made it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, that is fantastic. Well, I applaud that. That's a wonderful story, and congratulations. And then moving on after the sale, the HireRight at some point, then you moved on to Certain after that at some point?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was with HireRight for nearly 5 years.
Yep.
And that was, again, it was another exciting journey. And seeing how some of the bigger CRAs work, and being back into a big organization was good, bad, indifferent. It had all of its own sort of challenges, but it was a great time, and it was a great time for the team. I think I kind of sold the business for 3 main reasons, and 2 of them were sort of opportunity for our clients. And there was things that we just couldn't do as a smaller organization.
Right.
And I think technology, like we know technology now is just moving at such a rate of knots. But even then, there was things that we couldn't do. And we had a fantastic partner in ACO Data that we used their platform, which was really a good decision that we made as PeopleCheck. But I think to take it to that next level, you really kind of needed certain things in your technology that we couldn't
Yeah,
afford as a small business. It sort of became
exactly.
yeah.
Well, good for you.
Yeah, so then I joined Certain in May last year.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, with all that in mind, then, I mean, it's such a great career path. I mean, it's such an inspiring story, and a lot of people can relate to that. Just the sheer madness of starting your own firm from scratch and then making it happen. That's just marvelous. What was an early lesson you learned in your career that has stuck with you and really, something that you saw and then really it helped you persevere, or something you learned that you said, okay, this is something good to know.
Oh, Les, there's so many. I think if I go back, I remember when I was a teenager and when you go through that path, and I think in Australia, I don't know if this is the same around the world, but in Australia, when you're kind of going into your senior years in high school, you start to think about whether you want to go to university or whether you want to do a trade or whether you want to go out and get a job. And you have we had a sort of careers person that would help with those sorts of things. And I remember some advice that she gave at that time. And she said, if you don't know what you want to do, if you don't have that overarching passion, pick what you really love and what you really enjoy, and don't chase things like money or where you think something's going to take you. Do something that you love. And at that time, and I still am, I loved legal studies. I loved things about the law. I loved reading. I was doing legal studies at the time, and it was my favorite subject. I loved it. I loved reading case law. I loved the stories that were associated with it. So I knew that I wanted to do something. And then I found this thing called criminology, and I was like, well, that sounds exciting. And I thought, because I don't want to be a lawyer, because lawyers, that seems boring, because I'm going to have to read contracts and do all these boring things. The irony was that I did criminology and I ended up running my own company, and big portion of my time was reading and reviewing contracts. But it's funny how things end up. But yeah, so that's the path that I sort of followed. And then I was lucky enough when I was at PwC to also, they sponsored me to do my master's degree in criminology, and I went and did that, and then really focused on like fraud prevention and all of those things that underpin why we do what we do. And absolutely kind of love that. So I think that advice was really, I've followed that my whole life. Just do what you love and it'll take you the right way.
Oh, fantastic. And it's not that people maybe love background screening per se, but it's everything that goes into it. The moving pieces, the puzzle, the underlying legal aspects and the organization. And I think and all the moving pieces sound like it attracted you.
Absolutely. My mum was a legal secretary when I was at school, and I used to, in a small firm, and I used to go and go and pick her up from work kind of thing. And I would chat to the solicitors, and I would, get involved we had this mock trial program at school, and I would do that. And I was fascinated by the investigation side and exactly what you said, how all the pieces fit together and what the outcome was, and preparing, the argument and all of those sorts of things. And yeah, it just took me down. Wouldn't have thought it'd take me this way, but it absolutely did. And I love researching. I love looking things and understanding things.
So I can see how you got into background screening and the whole process, but you were in it for a long time and you continue to be a vital part of it. So what do you enjoy most about the background screening industry?
Oh, I think it is all of those parts. I also find it fascinating. I think very early on, when you're trying to sell background screening and trying to grow the industry in APAC, people will be like, well, nobody provides a bad reference. Nobody's going to consent to a background check if they've got something in their background. And the amount of times that you see what you see, and I love sort of seeing the results that would come back. I still get a kick out of that. I still enjoy that. And I think growing the business side of it, I learned how to to develop a business, and I'm now really interested in that. I love all aspects, like being involved in product. I like being involved in looking at the P&L. I like growing really high performing teams, and I've had some amazing that I've worked with over the years. So I love all of that. I like doing bits and pieces of everything. I really find that interesting.
Well, I mean, that I think that really stands out as fantastic. One of the things you mentioned that I found really interesting is you just mentioned in that in APAC, you have different cultural approaches to background screening, much different than the U.S. I think I coined a phrase back in 2004 when it comes to international background checks, every country is an adventure. And you should not assume that anything done in the U.S. translates or replicates any place else in the world. Every place else in the world is its own adventure. So with that, kind of background, you've been on the ground floor of just some momentous changes in how background screening is done in APAC, right?
Oh, it has. It's changed so much. And I remember my very first verification check that I did was not in Australia, it was in India. And back then it was hard. Like the Indian market has grown and changed so much just in the last 5, 10 years. It's really come of age. But back then it was, you would have to explain to somebody what you were doing before you could actually even get the
Mm-hmm.
information. But the flip side of that was there was no data privacy really back then either. So
Right.
people will willingly provide information to you as long as they understand and why you needed it and what you were looking for. They would sort of provide that information willingly. And then you've seen that change, I think, definitely as things like, I think the GDPR was a huge influencer, particularly in APAC, in really defining and bringing in data privacy regulations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's changed the industry a lot. I think in APAC in particular. Australia is even a little bit differently. Australia does things a little bit different. We've had privacy legislation since 1988, so a long time, but it's definitely evolved a lot since then. Yeah.
Well, you've had a chance to be on the cutting edge of all that because of your really intense involvement with PBSA. And so you're at the forefront of all these issues, the development of privacy, the development of the globalization of PBSA. Why don't you tell us what you've done with PBSA and your participation in some of the various roles you've had?
Wow, PBSA has been so amazing. I first got really involved with PBSA in, gosh, it was just after I started PeopleCheck. So it was probably around that 2006, 2007. And I joined what was then called, you probably set it up, Les, it was the International Education Committee.
And actually, I have to say I didn't, but I appreciate the thought. But all right, but much smarter people than me set that type of stuff up. So you would join the International
I
Education
joined,
Committee.
yeah, there was like an international education committee. And the reason that I joined that is because the APAC market really was like the lessons we needed to learn from the US and the growth of the industry in the US was how do you educate employers to background screen? Like, so I was very focused and I'm very focused on education just in general, just learning myself and teaching others. And that was really key. So, how could I take what we know about the industry and teach our customers and people to do checks? So I joined that industry and just learn a lot about, and I think even when you say every country is a different journey, I think we've got a lot to learn from the journey that the US has gone through in growing this industry. So I joined that, and then that was kind of disbanded. And then I started to get involved in the development of the APAC chapter, it was back then. And I never went to any of the conferences or anything like that, but I was sort of one of those people in the background, jumping on the calls and doing those things. So I was part of as a founding member of the APAC now council. Then I got quite heavily involved. I took those learnings from the International Education Committee and started the APAC Education Committee. And then I was sort of elected onto the APAC leadership team. It was a bit different back then because we were the NAPBS back then, and the when you were elected, you would do your time as secretary, then treasurer, then chair elect, and
Right.
then chair. And so I did that, and then I was chair of the APAC chapter in 2019, and then after that, and that was all around globalization. Oh my gosh, that was such an exciting year, 2019. I sold my business to HireRight. I was chair of the council. The PBSA went through the globalization and I was part of the global task force. And I have to say that would be probably definitely a big standout. So working with colleagues all around the world at all times of the night. And then I was lucky enough to be elected to the board of directors as well. So I did do a full term and partial term. Unfortunately, I had to step back from the board when I joined Certain, as my wonderful colleague Katie Colt was also on the board. So Katie retained that seat at that time, and I
Oh,
stepped
okay, I
away
got it. Okay.
and stepped back into, was re-elected into the APAC
Oh,
Council.
that's great. So you're on the board of PBSA, which is a great honor, but with a great honor comes a great deal of work and responsibility. And
Yeah, it's
in
amazing.
addition to your normal life, all
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And then you're currently the head of the APAC Council, right? If I understand it.
Yes, yes. So I currently serve as chair of the APAC Council. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And so, under the old NEPBS, when it was basically U.S. centric before the globalization, that would be the equivalent that you're the chair for APAC. Like we have a chair for the U.S. and there's an overall chair for the PBSA structure. So that's fantastic. And how long is your term for that? When do you get set free? When do they let you go for good behavior?
Well, it's been an interesting journey, this one, because I was actually chair elect, and then the person going into chair had to step away. So I've actually doing an unusual 2 terms. I'll be doing 2 terms as chair for the APAC Council. Usually it is 1 term. You do 1 term, you do a year as chair elect, and then you do a year as chair. I've kind of I've skipped the chair elect and gone straight into chair. So it's
Right.
a bit of an unusual situation that kind of happened for APAC at that time, but I was happy to kind of step back in after sort of stepping off the board. So I don't know what I've always got to do something, Les. Like, I love being involved and I love working, doing anything PBSA. It's just such a great way to learn things.
Well, I mean, everyone appreciates it. I think that people who don't always appreciate how much work being on the board is or being a chair is and how much you're giving back to the entire screening industry, or that you're lifting up all firms. And, everyone, I hope, appreciates that because in addition to your normal life with your family and then your job, right? This is above and beyond. So
Yeah.
this is just a ton of work. And so that's great. And I did make a note that you were twice, not once, but twice PBSA Volunteer of the Month. Tell us about that.
It was. Oh, the first time, oh, it was so exciting because I remember being given that wonderful honor just before I went to my very first PBSA conference. I remember going there, and for those that haven't gone to the conferences, you go there and there's this massive, big, like, wall with all of these like little ribbons on it, and you pick up your name badge and then you stick these ribbons on. And I was like looking at this wall and I was thinking, oh, I can't really put many ribbons on mine. And you'd see, Kirsten Baggis walking around with like her flummy ribbons, and it was pretty exciting to be able to put that Volunteer of the Month recipient on there. And it was actually, I'd just been given that wonderful honor just before that conference, so that was the first time. And then the second time was just last year, so that was amazing.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's pretty wonderful.
So for those who didn't have a chance to attend, where was the APAC conference in 2024 and 2025?
Yeah, 2024 was in December. We had it in Sydney, which was wonderful. And we've now had 2 in Sydney. And I know it's a long way for everybody to go. And there was a lot of discussion about that. But it is such a beautiful city, Sydney. And we had a wonderful time, and we did this most amazing harbour cruise. And I've done many a harbour cruises in my life, but they never get old, I have to say. Just seeing that beautiful Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Opera House at dusk is just stunning. It's just wonderful. Yeah.
And some of the people that had a bit more adrenaline actually walked
They
the Sydney
did.
Bridge trip.
They did. They absolutely did. And you know what? I've never done that. And it's just one thing that I really must do, but it's a beautiful thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a healthy respect for the law, particularly the law of gravity. So being that high up, and it just seems to be counterintuitive. But that's just me. Right.
Well, I must say, I think I would probably rather be on the boat drinking the champagne and looking and waving rather than necessarily
Yeah,
being
and
up on
wave
the
to the
bridge.
people up there, exactly. And so, when's the next APAC conference?
So the next APAC conference is in Bangkok, Thailand, and that will be in December this
Oh,
year.
fantastic. I wish I can go. I don't think I can, but that would just be so much fun. So
Yeah, really excited. Yeah.
I would love that. So you've put in so much time for PBSA. You have uh, more things you're doing, or is it time to step back and a little bit, or how's that going to work out for you, do you think? What's your crystal ball say? Who'd you go to? A clairvoyant. What's it say about that?
So once I step back from, I don't know, there'll be something else that I'll do, Les. I can't imagine my time with the PBSA. I can't imagine stepping back. Is that even a thing? I don't.
No, no, no.
I don't.
That was a trick question. It's not.
Yeah,
No.
I'm sure there'll be something. I'd probably love to get involved with the board again, and that was I really
Yeah.
enjoyed doing that. I think the hardest thing was the calls in the middle of the night, but it's so worth it to do that.
So
Yeah.
when's your next trip to the U.S. for a PBSA event?
Oh, I'm not sure I'm going to make it this year, unfortunately, but we'll see. But I'll definitely be there in Bangkok for
Oh,
the
that's
8th.
fantastic. Well, I mean, it's just your time, your contribution for PBSA and for the industry as a whole, and obviously for all the things you've done is just really interesting. But standing back a second from background screening, let's talk about life beyond background screening. What do you do, hobbies or interests, or what do you do outside of work? Or there's a term for that. It's a three-letter word. Oh, called fun. What do you do for fun?
Well, I have fun at work, I must say. Oh, life's busy. I have two teenage sons and a wonderful supportive husband and a cat. And so life is sort of busy with family life, particularly on weekends. I do try to not work on weekends. That's kind of my rule. After working so many years in retail, I do like my weekends. I love good wine and good food. I love sort of going out and enjoying all of those wonderful things. And those that know me will know this. I'm a shopper. I love shopping, any type of shopping, online, markets, shopping centers, anything. And in fact, in many of my trips to the US, my sightseeing is I will find unique places to go shopping. That's my thing. I do love doing that. And I like finding unique little treasures, and particularly handbags is a big thing for me. And I also collect teapots. So,
Right.
and I think the stranger the better, particularly in my handbags. You will see me. I've got some very unique handbags.
So you have the unique handbags and strange teacup collection,
Teapots.
teapot
Yep.
collection, strange
Yep.
teapots. All right.
Yep, I do. I
And,
do.
and I love the way, of course, that in the U.S. you would be a shopper, but in Australia you're a shopper.
I told you I put A's on everything, lads.
Exactly. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, make it a U.S. conference, and I'm there. My wife is there. You and my wife could go off on a shopping tour because it sounds like right up her alley as well. Something she would do exactly what you described. So that would
I
work out
love
really
it.
well.
It's good fun. It's good fun. And I think the other thing I love doing as well is I'm a big true crime podcast enthusiast, and I'll put my sort of earpods in and walk around the house doing my like weekend chores or whatever, and I'll be always listening to a true crime podcast, and I absolutely love that.
Oh, that's great. So I mean, so is it an audio book or programs where they recount true crimes and kind of recreate the situation? How's that work?
I really enjoy like the longer series, like the investigative series. Actually, it was my first time listening to a podcast. It was at a PBSA conference at the end of the conference, and I had a little while to wait for my flight. So I was sitting down. It was in one of the ones in one of the Gaylord where they've got, beautiful resorts. And I was sitting there and there was this beautiful backdrop, and I found this podcast and I started listening to it, and that was it. That was it for me. I was catching up on listening to this podcast, and ever since I just love them. Yeah.
So
So
here you were in a beautiful hotel, beautiful environment, and you were just
I
focused
know.
on the grisly details of drug, sex, and murder.
It literally was. The podcast is it's called Shandy's Story. It's an Australian by a great podcaster, and it was a grisly one and so interesting. Again, it's all about that investigation, the investigative side, and putting all those pieces together, like really interesting.
So
Yeah.
the grislier the better, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know. I mean, in real life, having been involved in a number of grisly cases as a lawyer, I don't know. I think I've had enough of that. So I tend not to listen to those anymore. But with all that, tell us something about yourself that we may have covered already, but time to play what we call fun facts. Tell us something about yourself that people may not know, or something that someone can hold over you the next time you see you at a PBSA meeting.
Oh,
What's
God.
your secret? Come on, tell us your darkest secret.
I feel like I'm a bit boring, but I have sung in the Sydney Opera House twice. Sydney
Sung.
Opera.
Okay. I didn't know what you had
Huh?
done. Now I can hear you.
And
Okay, tell us about that.
I'm not a singer. I just want to put that out there. So this is what's going to happen. The next PBSA conference, they're going to ask me to get up there and sing or something. I am a
Of
terrible singer.
course.
But when I was at school, there was where I went to school is a little bit out of sort of Sydney. It was 4 hours away from Sydney, and we had these opportunity to be involved in this combined schools choir, it was called. So all schools around the state would sing these songs, and it was in the opera house. There was this big concert in the opera house. So I put my hand up to do that, and we took the trip to Sydney. We learned all the songs, and we were all in there, and we all sang in the opera house, and I did that tour.
Wow. Opera aficionado from the Sydney Opera House. That's fantastic. You made your stage debut in the Sydney Opera House. That's
I
marvelous.
did it. Yeah, and they haven't asked me back since. I just don't understand why, but anyway.
Well, you're just too busy, and they assume
I must be.
they can't afford you. And all
That must be it. That must be it.
that's fantastic. All right.
Yeah.
Well, when you're not singing in the opera house, all right, and doing all the other things you do, I mean, I'm just sitting here, just my eyes glazing over, thinking, how do you possibly do all of this? But it's just amazing. I mean, your energy and the fact that you just can get so many things done and done well. So congratulations on that. It's really marvelous. Well, with all the experience and perspectives you have from being involved in the industry as you described it in so many different ways and being involved in PBSA, what advice would you have for a newcomer to the industry, or maybe someone right now, they're a verifier, which is an important job, but they're wondering, well, how would I go up and hire, or do I stay here, or is there room for advancement? How can I, make the most of my career here? What's your advice to them?
I think we're in this great industry where there's so many opportunities. So, you can be in marketing, you can be in product and development. I would say that everybody, doesn't matter what your role is, should spend time in operations or fulfillment and learn the basics. And I think that the other is also spend some time in customer service, answering the phones, answering the emails. And I think that really getting into what we actually do on a day-to-day basis is essential no matter what role you're doing in the organization. So because that's the foundation of what we do. That's the product. And I think if you understand what we do, how we do it, and why we do it, and why things sort of happen, and why that outcome looks like that, and why this one looks like that, is better for our clients, it's better for our candidates, and it's better for our business growth.
That's great advice. Well, we're at the point where we now have one last question for you at the very end of the interview. I always tell my guests, you have the last word. So with all of the wonderful stories you told us and all the participation and all the things that you do, anything you want to add, now's your time. The microphone is yours.
Oh my gosh. There's so much that you sort of want to say, but I'm so thankful that I fell into this industry, was given the opportunities and all of the opportunities. And I would say to everybody, take those opportunities and when they present themselves. And I'm so thankful not only for the people that have guided me along the way, but I want to say an overarching thank you to all those people that have worked with me in all of my times, particularly in PeopleCheck. And you all know, those of you that are listening, you know who you are. I've had some amazing people that have worked with me for a considerable number of years. And they're the ones that have helped me grow, develop, and change. And I'm so thankful for them and all of the lessons that they teach me. So thank you to all of those people and all of those. They're just amazing. There's just amazing. And now it's certain there's just such great teams wherever you go. It's just such a beautiful industry. Really is.
Well, it's fantastic. And I love the stories that you shared and the insight and the energy. And it's just been wonderful to have a chance to talk to you more. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Behind the Screens. Today, the background pro that we were privileged to talk with, and it was a delightful conversation, all the way from Australia, was Summa with an A McCosker, who does not, you do not look anywhere close to a person who could have been in the industry for 27 years, but that's,
Oh, bless you, Les.
so when you say that, it's like, all right, I have to fact check that because I don't believe it. But all right, you say it, and all right, I accept it, but it just doesn't seem right. So, but anyway, it's been fantastic having you. I hope you stay tuned for next episodes of Behind the Screens, where we'll have other individuals and background pros. And today, it was just such a delight again to have Selma with us. Selma, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Les.
All right, that was yet another wonderful conversation with a background screening pro. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an update. And hey, if you got a moment, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It really helps get the word out. For more info or to catch up on past episodes, or to make suggestions or to suggest possible future guests, head over to our website. Once again, this is your host, Les Rosen, and it's been a pleasure to bring you another episode. See you on the next episode. Thanks.